and welcome to After Hours with Bo and Tammy right here on these Changing Times Radio.ning.com. How are you, Bo?
Pissed. I'm awful pissed.
Well, there's a lot going on, and of course, Rocco's still being maintained in McHenry County, Illinois, without being arraigned. Of course, he's got his scheduled arraignment tomorrow morning. Last time, of course, he did not claim the name. He did not contract, and we're waiting on something. The court does not have jurisdiction over him, of course, to offset or discharge congressional bankruptcy because he's not married to the Hughes. Never has been. She was always contracted with that state, the other father, and that is what is written.
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it. You know, he's been in there going on 2 weeks. It'll be 2 weeks Thursday, I believe. Friday. And let my people go. I mean, see why when we follow the rules of the Exchequer, we play the game accordingly. We win the game accordingly, and we still come up against a brick wall, mostly because of the media weight out there, okay? Because we have all these lemmings that are following Alex Jones, or let me ask you something. Has Alex Jones sued Congress? Has he ever pointed the finger exclusively at Congress? Okay? All right, and all these other guys, okay, we are changed. I want my constitutional rights. Now, they had a good story today. Though, I mean, I like them for their news, but this activist on there was an activist that promotes constitutionalism and, First Amendment rights, blah, blah, blah. And if you listen to any of our stuff at all, you know what utter nonsense that is. Okay? It's just more bullshit for you to fill yourselves up with, okay, and keep you from seeing the truth of the matter, which is that they took your rights from you in the first place in order to be able to sell them back to you.
Right,
wake the fuck up.
Right. And this is relative to Matthew 27. When the media presented to the sheeple and asked them whether or not, well, do you like this system? Do you want to patronize this system? And ultimately it came down to, quote, let him be crucified. Yes, we like our benefits. We like our rights. We like our pretend foods wrapped up in shiny packaging and everything else. And this is the point we're at now. This is the absolute. Are the citizens, sheeple, citizens, individuals, free man on the land, patriots, are they going to realize what this is and stand up on behalf of their fellow human being? Or are they going to allow Jesus to continuously be crucified and maintained in such manners?
Or are they just all false prophets because we've reached out to many of these individuals, okay, and explained to them how the game works, but they want to go on playing their game, such as Rod Class, we got some more breaking information for you on how bad they're screwing us. Well, I'm going to go back in there and plead some more.
And these, poor idiot sheriffs, constitutional sheriffs, I saw some news come through today. They're standing, quote, against the FBI, and they're really not if they're adhering to the Bill of Rights and all of these bullshit laws that were implicated or put into place or put in action to enable human trafficking. And as things are playing out, we're finding more and more that perhaps these law enforcement are also guilty. We have allowed them the opportunity to learn now. We've personally contacted them on a continual basis for the last year, reaching out to them on all of our shows and all of our teachings. And again, personal contact throughout this time that Rocco's been in there. And you know, maybe they don't know what to do. Maybe they're so used to taking up these orders from these attorneys in black dresses. Maybe they're scared or they're fearful, but Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me. For those that save their own life, you shall lose it. And that's, again, it's crunch time.
And that's the time we're at now. And this is the situation to the minute. All the paperwork that needs to be entered has been entered. Everything is there. The monies are waiting for the sheriff that executes the first order under the public law, okay, which hasn't happened yet. And they're going to find out quickly, if they don't know already, that their departments are running dry. I don't know what they're running off of. Fumes, donations, contributions, charities. I don't know, those that are aiding and abetting the known enemy as they were found guilty to the matter of genocide. Okay? All right, Congress is killing you all worldwide. GMO foods. We got Obama, you know, he's going to go ahead and give the okay to start killing U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. We got, you know, CIA stirring up shit everywhere in Syria and Libya, and, you know, Syria and Iran are on the targets again. They want to see what you people will continue to consent to.
Especially because they're telling you what they're doing. In the Belfast Telegraph this week, the CIA said, well, what we do is if there's a need for somebody to have child porn on their computer, we'll put it there for them. If there's a need for somebody to have naked pictures on their cell phones, we'll put it there for them. That's what the CIA does. It produces intelligence. It produces information. And then they go ahead and locate the law enforcement from there. And then law enforcement investigates these things, finds the child porn, finds the naked pictures, finds the whatever the CIA wanted to put there to maintain the production, and that's where the investigation stems from. So it's always created out of artificial intelligence, of course, promoted through the CIA. And now that the CIA is actually admitting to this, if the sheeple do not stand up at this point in time, then those lemmings can go ahead and go into the system as well, because we've done everything in our power and our authority, but it's up to the sheeple citizens whether or not they're going to continue to patronize this thing and call it their father or not. Like I said, it's crunch time. Jesus is on the cross. If the sheeple don't stand up, that's up to them.
You know, as I've stated before, I'm not the most eloquently spoken radio talk show host, okay, nor did I ever have any ambitions of being a radio talk show host. Okay, I find myself here out of the laws of necessity at this point. All right, and there's nobody else willing, apparently, or capable of doing it. But as I've tried to lay out for you, Tammy's tried to lay out for you, Rocco's tried to lay out for you. All right, we have others out there that are walking the walk, and you know, those numbers are few and far between, but they get it. There are a few out there that get it. All right, now since studying with Tammy, you know, I've come to understand the truth of the matter, the rules of the Exchequer, how far this goes back. Okay, this isn't about the United States of America and that piece of paper, Constitution, Declaration of Independence. Yeah, well, it's about that, but not in the way you think. Okay, these are things, these are mechanisms that they used to hook you in, to be their sureties, so they can offset their congressional bankruptcy and stuff their pockets at your demise.
Articles of incorporation maintained by a business. It's a corporation. Each one. Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4, Amendment to Article whatever. These are articles of incorporation of a criminal enterprise, a business model. And to patronize it is the same thing as allowing Walmart to human traffic.
Yeah, because it's all the corporations too. Through these articles of incorporation, these corporations that are listed with the Council on Foreign Relations are the government.
Absolutely.
They are the government.
Absolutely.
Google, government.
Absolutely.
All right? Now, wrap your minds around that and think about that flag that so many of you are still saluting, being patriotic to, paying your taxes, voting. Okay? All this shit is just leading us further down the road.
Well, and the people need to consider, when you're laid off from your job in one of these corporations, and then you seek forever to find another job with another corporation of the corporate governance, and you take a pay cut, and you take a hit to your retirement, and you take a hit to your 401k programs, and you take all of these hits. That's the same corporation doing this. It doesn't matter what its face is. Sears, Walmart, Google, Amazon, any one of these things are your corporate governance. So you were laid off for a reason. You were fired for a reason. You lost your job for a reason. And that was to put you down on your knees, to teach you to be a better PC product. And when you're taught to be a good boy or a bad boy and a bad girl, you're taught that you are these things. Ultimately, you patronize that thing to a greater extent because you feel lost. You feel alone. You feel like you've done something wrong. It's just a business model, and as Phil told me one time, it's just business. That's all it is. It's just business. Your children are human trafficked to make money for these corporations. You are trafficked to make money for these corporations. You're murdered every day. 42 women a day, 42 females a day are dying from what they say is prescription drug overdose. Those are the intentions of these medications, and we've been reporting on that the last couple months here since we were able to evidence the facilitation of genocide against the human populace through the medical industry. Ativan, lorazepam, hydrocodone, all of these medications are now being used to execute human beings through lethal injection. But you are diagnosing yourself by the television programming. You're running to the doctor for these things, and you want to be sleepy. You want to be, maintained in this comfortable zone where you don't have to deal with anything, and everything else can go on around you, even though you're being slaughtered slowly through low-intensity conflict, fourth-generation warfare. You're not. Or
quickly, if you have suicide by cop.
Absolutely. These things are all.
Which almost happened to Rocco.
Yep.
If we hadn't been on the phone with them, they would have murdered him.
Right. They were in the action of doing this. I'm still waiting on some type of order that ordered this. They had tased him at least 12 times from the recording that I could hear. And at one point in time, it sounded like he was stuck with something. A female voice came on and said, "This is going to pinch." He said, "What are you doing? What are you doing to me?" And then within 10 minutes, he started getting kind of loopy. His voice started getting slurred and whatever else. And ultimately, they said they were going to lay him on his back. And at one point in time, he's saying that he's having chest pains and everything else. And at that point in time, it was just after that, after they had tased him so many times, that I coughed so that they could hear me in his pocket. And at that point in time, they found the phone, of course, and told him it was dead and closed it. And that was very interesting to me to witness that in all of its actuality because, again, I don't know if it was the marshals intentionally trying to kill him because, of course, there's always an order that has to be, that they're executing. And so I want to know who was directing them to do these things against Robert Richard. There will be accountability. I mean, it's not like I'm going away anytime soon or Bo's going away anytime soon.
And it's not like this process can be stopped now anyways. The writing's on the wall. If you guys cannot see what's going on in the mainstream news, Christie, we've got more, shenanigans with other politicians, that's being broadcast exposed on the mainstream media. We got teachers going into the shoot. One today I covered, female was, claiming that her nude photo's been stolen, when in reality somebody got her cell phone, posted them on a revenge site. Okay, now she's done with being a fifth grade science teacher. Okay, I mean, you know how they would have covered this up in the past. Okay, the same thing with you cops out there. They're now starting to feel the brunt. Okay, all right. I put this stuff out on my YouTube channel every single day. Tammy covers it on her show. We cover it on the Bo and Rockwell show. It's coming down, and I can't even keep up with all the stories anymore. I mean, look at this. I've got a stack of papers right here that is nothing but, cops, attorneys, judges, all getting arrested. All right? Now, that's because their funding has been shut off. I don't know how else I got to prove this. I put the IMF screenshots up on the Dropbox the other day. Okay, you can see them when their funding was cut. The House of Lords isn't, supplying any treasury monies to these criminals. This is the first song we played was Big Money. All right. And that's what this is about. This is about big money now, because throughout the course of history, these psychopaths have devised this mechanism to siphon off your wealth, going back at least 1,000 years. Okay, I'm going to say 1180, the separation of the spiritual and temporal, at least, but it was going on before that too. This scheme of bankruptcy is something these psychopaths came up with a long time ago, and they've hid it and cloaked it very connivingly and gotten you to consent with it through the generations. You're brought up in these schools, by your indoctrinated parents, think it's okay to send you to a state-sponsored school which is going to turn around and turn you into a better product, so you can perpetuate this system of throwing you under the bus for offsetting their congressional bankruptcy and lining their pockets. Okay, now, we called them on this, all right? Now, I don't know why we don't have any other quote-unquote gurus out there jumping on board with this, because I personally think the reason is that because every goddamn one of them are a bunch of CIA agents.
And it could be. I mean, we're looking at this thing that was created as a marquee. Just this house, a tent where a circus is performed. You got court jesters all over the place, and that's all this is. And going back to the public school system itself, or Hitler Youth camps. Now, every one of our listeners right now and throughout time, they've had dealings with their out-of-control teenagers, their out-of-control children, and they're blaming their children for not listening to them. But they're the ones that are putting their children in these public school systems where they're being taught that their parents don't have any authority and that their parents are retarded. They're being taught that their parents can't tell them what to do, can't do this, can't do this. And so the authority, the absolute institution of family, of community, has been destroyed through the action of low-intensity conflict, which is a war tactic. These are war tactics. As somebody tells your child, that you are not the authority, that's automatically busting apart the institutionalization or the institution of family. That's its purpose. To separate you, to divide and conquer, to enable it to do what it's doing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And preying on your kids. You send them to school to be preyed on.
Absolutely.
Okay, by feminism, Alinsky method. Your boys are being feminized. Okay, your females are being empowered by feminism, so which to perpetuate this whole system. All right, which is exactly the setup, going back to 1180 with the separation of the spiritual and temporal. Tammy was posting earlier, I saw in one of the rooms how what was that you were saying now? I lost my train of thought here. The males have been demonized, this system of demonizing the males and taking the males off of the protection, so the females run to the other daddy, which is the state.
And the predator.
Now anybody that hasn't seen the King's bankruptcy out there, this is a YouTube video, and it's on my channel, Bono's Entertainment. You need to listen to that, because that video pretty much outlines just about everything on how this situation is going on, up until and including the point where Congress, calling itself the King, declares bankruptcy in 1933, and through covert means, actually 29 was the bankruptcy, okay, and that's when the Geneva Convention also occurred.
33 was bankruptcy, but they had postured setting up for this last bankruptcy using the 1929 Geneva Convention.
They're all postures, all the old charters, okay, the Magna Carta, the Cestui Que Vie Act, the Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, Constitution of the United States of America, and it goes on and on. It's all posturing, and it's all building a more complex matrix, dumbing down the people with the foods and the educational system, to the point where many of you can't even comprehend what it is we're even talking about.
And you'll shut off. That's what's known as cognitive dissonance. And when you go study the aspect of Stockholm Syndrome, you're patronizing a captor in exchange for protection. Everybody's suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. They think, well, this is scary. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be arrested. Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me. If you save your life, you'll lose it. Period. No narcissism. Absolutely no narcissism. Take up your cross and follow Jesus. There's no question there. He didn't tell you, well, if you feel like it, or if you arm yourself first, which is so stupid. Why would you be doing that? That's what the Pope does. The Pope has armed guards around him. He's got a bulletproof car.
Yeah, trust in God. Hey, I got a full staff of security today, don't I?
Absolutely. He has no faith. He has no hope, and he has no charity whatsoever, and his priests don't either.
But I don't even care about him, at the moment. Okay, he's a figurehead. All right? He's running diversion for Congress.
Absolutely.
We've got all these lemmings out there saying, oh, the Vatican is behind it all. And the Freemasons, and yeah, they're a part of it. Okay, you know what they are? They're tentacles of Congress to the 1947 National Security Act in some manner or fashion. But going back to this bankruptcy in 1933, all right? 1933, that's how long ago? We're talking 81 years ago. And Congress appoints itself, through covert means, the trustee of the bankruptcy.
And then says you're the one that's bankrupt.
Yeah, they told you you're the one that's bankrupt, but they're the ones that are bankrupt. Then they appoint themselves through covert means, like they said. It looks like the Federal Reserve is the trustee of the bankruptcy. The Federal Reserve is another tentacle of Congress.
Right, it's a mechanism, and it only moves according to market condition. It's reservation on rights.
And so who they appoint the strong-armed thugs to be overseers of the bankruptcy is the U.S. Marshals. Okay, that's right in your face. U.S. Marshals overseeing the bankruptcy of the United States Incorporated. Okay, you lost your government in 1933, folks. It was a corporation, and the only reason it continues is because you keep consenting.
Patronizing it, calling it your father.
Your God.
Yeah, it's demigod. You're calling a demigod your father because it gives you things. It gives you welfare and Social Security benefits and veterans benefits. But on the flip side, how many of you is it killing? As it gives you that benefit, they're cashing in. You're only going to get 0.82% in the debenture participation program. Now, debenture participation. You know the word partake means to participate, to eat up, to buy into. So what you're doing is you're partaking of the tree of knowledge in the garden right now, not past tense. And once you partake of that tree of knowledge in the garden, you've given up the garden. That's how Congress owns your garden. You're patronizing it and calling it your father, and it's giving you rights or benefits, which is the doctrine of election. You are never going to get both, and you are never the heir. Congress called itself the heir back at the original charters and said, well, we're seceding these estates. Secession means to take over an estate on behalf of a dead person, on behalf of the deceased. No, are you dead? Yes. If you're claiming to be a fiction, you're not alive. You're not be living. You're not there. You're a fiction. You're a negotiable instrument.
That's right. Now we get the idea of the fictitious plaintiff set up in these court systems. All right. Man, we've explained this stuff all before. You know, this is where we're at now, though, in that the real sheriff has got to come forward, and the only way that's going to happen is with enough pressure and media. I can only do so much. Tammy can only do so much. But if you don't rise up right now, you're all going to be squashed like ants. Now, we're probably facing global extinction if we don't stop what's going on real soon here with the disaster at Fukushima, all right, which is basically due to corporate greed, which was facilitated through corporations having rights reserved over yours through that 14th Amendment. Okay? Now, the idea of the 14th Amendment is nothing new. Okay? But when they passed it back in the 1860s, that kind of solidified things for the corporations, and we've been on a slowly downhill slope of having human beings being thrown under the bus for the betterment of the corporations, which are your federal government through the Articles of Association, Articles of Incorporations. All right? Now, the states came into this corporate structure through the Acts of Enablement, which started in 1802, but it's no different. Not one slight difference other than what they may be called on paper. They're Acts of Enablement, Articles of Incorporation, Articles of Association. It's all one big thing. This is all one big Leviathan that the ignorance of the sheeple is helped perpetuate, unfortunately, for all of us. Now, we found them guilty of genocide through their own documentation, through their own congressional action. Congress, as you may recall, means with transgression, and you keep patronizing the thing that's transgressing on you. Oh man, go ahead, Tammy.
I know. It's very frustrating, and then we've got the pre-scribes and Pharisee coming back in again, and especially the last 2 weeks, calling us meanies for calling out the citizens and sheeple. And they're saying, well, I'm the nice guy. I'm the church here that can offer you food bank services when you're starving. I'm the nice guy because I can feed you so much crap, and you'll buy into this. You'll buy into the tree of knowledge, and you'll buy these concepts from me, the Lord God. And it's so sad to see that some are still buying into this game because of their patronage, patriotism, because of their experiences that they've experienced. And bottom line, because of selfishness and narcissism. Because they're protecting the self over the other self. The one that you look at every day. That human being that's being destroyed by Congress. That child that's being raped by congressional action. That child that's being raped by the local judge, pastor, priest, psychiatrist. And all of these things that everybody has suffered. Every human being on this planet has suffered. It used to be, you know, I know this girl that got raped, or I know this boy that got raped, and now it's down to the point where I got raped, my child got raped, my niece got raped, and it's not hit or miss anymore. It's blatant, in your face, that this is what this business does. And it's not ever, 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 I got raped by a stranger. It's, I got raped by a cop, I got raped by a teacher, I got raped by a pastor, I got raped by a priest, I got raped by a judge, I got raped by an attorney. And all of these things need to go away, because those things cannot happen. They cannot happen if you're not patronizing that thing, and if you're removing them from the ability to harm, which is what Jesus taught. He did not teach forgiveness. He taught compassionate justice. Remove them. If the eye offends you, pluck it out. Take it off. Get it away from you. And forgive financial crimes, which are not harm against humanity. And it's just so perverted that money and things can be more important than human beings. Babies. Men, women, and children.
And here you are, still being patriotic to that thing. Okay, after we told you what they're doing. Okay, and they've even told you in their own writings that you are the enemy. Okay, the Indemnification Act, which updated the Trading with the Enemies Act, which was the kickoff to World War I. That act made you, the American citizen, enemies of the state. Every single one of them. Every single one of you.
And the 1947 National Security Act solidified that, and said that the nations, each foreign state, each county, each corporation has life over you, which stems from the 14th Amendment, the legal concept of person. That thing has life above and beyond yours, and so it's being protected since the 1947 National Security Act. Those are foreign nations. Each corporation is defined as a foreign nation under 28 U.S.C. Chapter 97. You can find the definitions in 28 U.S.C. subsection 1603. And in this, you are being maintained to facilitate corporate welfare. So every time that, what's his name with the bad hair goes bankrupt, you're subscribing to that. That's a millstone wrapped around your neck, and you're discharging that bankruptcy by your productivity, by your product, by being that product, by being maintained as a product, a fictional character in a play, in a marquee, the House of Representatives. I pray every day that you hear us. That's all it takes.
I hate to tell you this, and I don't want to seem like a braggart, but this is the only game in town. We've got the only bond out there that has any weight in reality whatsoever. What you guys are buying into with the federal state is a fiction. All right? And a lot of you are going to find out the hard way. A lot of you. Cops are finding out the hard way right now. Okay? What we was able to do in this court case is swap the surety, which had been the human beings since 1929 Geneva Convention. We swapped that with the fiction. What is the fiction? Well, those that have a fictitious government. Okay? Those attorneys that they have a fictional government called the bar, which includes so-called judges, which we evidence in our case were not judges at all. They were attorneys wearing black dresses with stampers that say judge on them, that their clerks stamp on your court papers. Okay?
Psychopaths that are forever seeking the self, that can never maintain their own government. A psychopath cannot have its own government. It's not able. It can say, I'm the king, but its works and actions do not evidence that it is anything other than a psychopath, and one that is seeking the self by control. And that's where we're at now. The human being, you know who you are. You know your authority, or you will. You are the most authority. You are the most important being in this game, and you must realize that immediately. And again, I pray that you all hear me, because this is you we're talking about. This isn't me. I'm already off the grid. Bo's already off the grid. I am not owned. I'm not being tricked out. Now, with Rocco in there, this is political pressure. This is called politics. This is a game of politics. And they want Rocco to consent. They want us to purchase him. They've got a $1,000 bond without an arraignment on him at this time. They want us to purchase from them. They want us to purchase their law. I don't purchase their law. Now, I've lost everything in the last 14 years. And for all of those law enforcement and maybe the judges that might be listening right now, this last year, a year and a half ago or so, the FBI took my daughter. And upon that time, when the FBI took my daughter, you know, of course she's consenting now. At that time, she was 17, and the FBI was, of course, employing pedophiles. Now, this year, they were threatening me with harm upon my daughter. And I turned around and I said, you're going to do what you're going to do. Now, my rules are 1 Corinthians 13. I am to suffer, bear all things, experience all things, believe all things, hope all things. And my rules are faith, hope, and charity, which means trust. Whatever you may do, you will do. That's your will. But I can guarantee you, by the evidence, you will be held accountable for your works and actions. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to go run and try to save anybody. I'm not going to purchase them from your system. Those are not my rules. You will do whatever you will do, but you will be held accountable. And that's the evidence of your works and actions, is upon your doing these things. Now, you have a choice. I was given a choice in free will to either offer you resistance or allow you to do what you're going to do, by which to evidence your works and actions. And in my free will, you will be evidenced according to your works. That is how you're held accountable. There's no due process there. Evidence speaks for itself. There is nothing there. Once you've done these things, you're evidenced to have done these things. And we have given the opportunity to all law enforcement, to all judges, to all attorneys, to take their hands back out of the pot, to limit liability. And this is what it comes down to. Culpability, accountability, liability. So if you are involved in these things, even if you're not a direct actor, you will be held accountable. You know, guilty by association, for example. If you work for a criminal enterprise and my daughter happens to be killed, you will be held accountable for her death. These things are evidenced by your works. And even if your peer happens to do something to one of my family members or whoever, you will be held accountable for that, because your peer is a psychopath. They usually have more money than you do because you're an agent of somebody else, which means that you're the fall guy. So right now is your choice in all things, just exactly as I had a choice in all things. That's the bottom line. The Commerce Clause of the Constitution says you can do whatever you want to under acts of commerce and private acts. But the restrictive principle of sovereign immunity and the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act says if you're caught, you're screwed. Doesn't matter who you are. And I don't care. I don't care if you're not acting as to God's word. I could care less. Whatever happens to you will happen to you. We've been trying to reach out to you and limit your liability, limit the, it's actually, political cannibalism is so much like drawing and quartering. And this is why we speak to you directly day after day, hour after hour. Because I don't like to witness those things, but I know they're going to occur. But in the end, if you are guilty of harm upon a human being, you're going to be held accountable regardless. And I know that for the average citizen and the average human being, you know, that's not normal to our thought processes to you know, have hatred or have anger in us to this extent. However, that is compassionate justice. And because I'm a human being, living state, a sovereign state of being, my children are most important. The children are most important. And if there's a threat upon humanity that is not removed that could influence or harm my children, then what are we doing here as a life on this planet, as a biology? What are we doing here if we can lay down, which is the law, and take all of these things without removing that harm from its ability to harm any further? What are we here for? Any other biology would have already killed the predator. They would have adapted to the point where if they're small vermin, they would have killed the wolf. They would have adapted to any and all forces and maintained death to the predator. And yet humanity, because of conceptual influence, psychological influence, and construct, they've been allowing this predation to continuously occur throughout history. And enough is enough. I do not care what happens to you if you've harmed a human being. And as I said, it's very painful. Political cannibalism is when you start praying for death of your body, because it's the action of drawing and quartering. And that's what Jesus said. In 1 hour, you will lose everything.
Yeah, as this guy found out here, now I started out talking about this story that We Are Change covered today. And again, I'm not going to say that I'm a supporter, because they're still patronizing the system. However, the news that they came out with, inmate writes letter about guards causing the death of a fellow inmate, gets thrown in solitary confinement while other witnesses are transferred to other jails. See, this guy had a $96 fine and received a death sentence in jail from these prison guards. Okay, that's what concerns me about what's going on with Rocco right now. All right, because you know, I mean, the debtor's prison system that it really is, okay, is a farce on its face to begin with. All right. Now that they have Rocco as a political prisoner, essentially, they have him behind bars. They're the thugs with the guns, acting on a void order from this judge. You know, but this is the danger he is in. All right. And the media weight right now doesn't seem behind us. We've got, you know, almost 5,000 views on this video from We Are Change. I've got like maybe 500 on the latest I have featured on you know, Rocco's situation. And you know, people just don't care unless it's sensationalized or it's got a pretty girl in a bikini on the cover. You know, the populace is so dumbed down and programmed, all right, that no, what we're saying is not popular or glamorous or exciting. All right, well, there's some excitement, but you know, people do not like hearing the truth. They want the easier to believe truth, the one that they can actually chew on and digest. All right, they don't want the kind of truth that we're telling you here about what's going on and how this is the king's bankruptcy that's affecting all of us, and we're under the rules of the exchequer. They want to think, oh, I live in the greatest country in the world, you know, which is a fiction created by the attorneys, by the way. You know, I lost 2 legs in Vietnam, but I'd happily go back and you know, and get my 3rd leg and my 2 arms, you know, if necessary, for the you know, for the country. Oh, what? They cut off my VA benefits? Oh,
I hate them now. We got to do something about this because I lost money. But they've already killed the wife, the kids, the family members.
They've broken up the family. All right? They killed my mom. They're killing your mom. They killed Phil's dad. Through the medical industrial complex that is the federal state. Okay? That has death derivatives on you. When your insurance runs out, rest assured, you will die in these medical facilities. I don't care how good at health you are when you go in there. As we found out, and it's seen over and over again, when you go in there, your health quickly deteriorates. And now it's come out that these cocktails that they're using to now kill people on death row are the same ones that they're feeding our loved ones that are allegedly being cared for.
Right. And what you're not seeing is that these medications, lorazepam, hydrocodone, these depress the lungs, and throughout time, your body enters into congestive heart failure. Now, a while back, I did a call for Jessica Bingham, and she was being arrested at that time. We ended up calling the law enforcement in Texas. They did not have their arrest listed, meaning they were probably going to take her out. They had already had her children in their custody and care by the time I called. And this is on a YouTube channel called Miss Just Another Human, which is Jessica's mother. Yesterday, I was on my Facebook wall, and Elizabeth is in a coma at this time in Washington State. And I haven't had any more updates since that time. But throughout a long span of time, she was on these medications. She was on these things. She was reliant on the medical industry. And at the last moment, she tried to step out. And it quickly turned downhill. And you can go through Miss Just Another Human's YouTube channel and watch her videos, and start around October when she didn't have congestive heart failure, and then, you know, follow it through as she's been diagnosed with diagnosis after diagnosis. And at this time, the last I heard was that she is in a coma, and our thoughts and prayers go out to her. But we've all experienced these things because of that patriotism to the hospital, to the county, to the state, to the benefit, to the Medicare system. And we have to walk away from that, because it always ends in death when you do that. Now, they're playing a game out in D.C. This is on the Washington Post today. Top D.C. judge allegedly steered contract to partner's husband and lied to investigators. The district chief administrative judge allegedly steered a $43,000 city contract to the husband of a business partner, hired that business partner into a city job, and lied to investigators probing the actions the city ethics board charged Thursday. No. See, this is normal day-to-day business for these judges. They're contracting with the local developers through the municipal bonds. That's what those bonds are. And what do you think it binds? These things are fixing bets, first of all. Municipal hedge funds are betting against and insuring the original bet. But what are these bonds? They bind human beings. And so this is what a judge normally does. This is day-to-day banking for the bank. However, he's being nailed for doing his job. He's being politically cannibalized. And anybody that's out there listening right now, this is a top D.C. judge, the district chief administrative law judge. This is the chief financial officer for the bank there in that incorporated state, D.C. And for all you cops and agents and attorneys and little fall guys, what do you think's coming down the pike at you for doing your job? They've taken more CIA agents out. I know that in October or September, we were covering the story of the director of the CIA operations was taken out for grooming a defense company in Japan. Now, this last week, they're nailing several others. They're charging them with bribery and prostitution. That was their job. That was what they were told to do by their handlers. They were doing it. And now they're what? Sitting in prison, facing charges, fines, fees. They are the new surety. But to all of you fall guys out there, if you're not aware of these things and you're not seeing what's going down, you're going to be sidelined really quickly here.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen the people getting, cannibalized for doing their job? All right, people want to argue with me all day long, priests and scribes out there on the internet, and personally, I'm beginning to think you're all a bunch of goddamn agents because nobody could be this stupid. Look at what's going on. All right, I'm sorry this is causing a shitstorm. This is the only way for this to end. And the longer it takes for the real sheriff to come forward and do his job as a steward for humanity, the longer this plays out, and the more would-be potential stewards are going to go down. Sheriffs are not immune. FBI agents are not immune. Congressmen are not immune. The whole dynamics of the situation has changed.
Absolutely. And one of the funniest things that happened this week, for me, I'm laughing anyway, is the officer that was charged in down south, let me see where it is here. I'll get this up. Many officers. There was 3 this morning that I pulled up. So already, yesterday it was like 6 altogether. And but this one officer, and let me create the venue here. Okay, everybody's being taught privacy laws, identity theft, and all of these things. Well, this officer and any other undercover officer listening at this time out there, you need to be aware of these things. So an officer of the law enforcement officer normally walks around and they do undercover work and everything. Well, this one was doing undercover work, and they used different identifications, and they used different credit cards. This one was nailed for identity theft for doing his job. And this is profound because you're not listening. Oh, I'm immune from that. I'm special because I have a different title. I'm officer so and so, and I have number whatever on my badge, and I'm protected by that badge. No, you're not. No, you're not. They took out CIA operations director, which is right under the CIA, right under the National Security Council. I mean, top level here, folks. They took him out for bribery when he was grooming a defense corporation in Japan, which was his function. That's what an operations director does for the CIA. And now here, you're disappearing too. You're being murdered every day, and you're not realizing of what all is going on. This week, the story was, let me get it up here for that director. Third senior Navy official arrested in bribery prostitution scandal. And this is on NBCnews.com, National Broadcasting Corporation. Quote, a third senior U.S. Navy official was arrested Wednesday and charged with accepting prostitutes, luxury travel, and cash from a foreign defense contractor in exchange for classified and internal Navy information, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California announced. U.S. Navy Commander Jose Luis Sanchez, 41, was arrested in Tampa, Florida, Wednesday. He is accused of accepting prostitutes, $100,000 in cash, and other bribes from Leonard Francis, a Malaysian contractor known in military circles simply as, quote, Fat Leonard, end quote. Interim prosecutors said Sanchez gave sensitive U.S. Navy information to Francis' Singapore-based company, Glenn Defense Marine Asia, or GDMA, which helped it overcharge the Pentagon for servicing Navy ships in the Pacific. So, the Pentagon is contracting with Glenn Defense Marine Asia, or GDMA, and it's rolling on its CIA operations. Hello?
Hello?
Is there anybody out there? I should put that on as a break too. We should take a small break real quick while I grab something to drink. I'll put a song on there. But these things are like crazy as can be when everybody is just, they're so dumbed down by the system. These cops that we're dealing with, they're so dumbed down. They're required to have low IQs. They're taught that they're bad boys and bad girls. They go into law enforcement because they're missing their father. They're patronizing something and calling it father in exchange for this protection. What protection? What protection? Ask yourself that. And we'll be right back, folks. We're going to enter into a small break. And we're back, and you're listening to Bo and Tammy After Hours on These Changing Times, radio.ning.com. We are a listener-supported radio station. If you'd like to donate, please go to the homepage, and over on the right, you can find the donate button. Patty allows us to have this venue, and we're so thankful to Patty and everybody, Zeets, everybody at These Changing Times.ning.com. for their efforts, their work, and what they put into these things, and we've got to get the word out. We've got to get everybody standing at once, together, united. The United States of being, which was usurped by actions of a criminal enterprise. And this is the point we're at now. Bo wanted to get into everything. It's yours, Bo.
Well, yeah. Okay, those songs we just heard, of course, Pink Floyd, The Timeless. And the question is there anybody out there? And Tammy says, well, I like to let people decompress a little bit, No, I said, put some snap your fingers on, because I want you to feel the shock and awe. And I want you to get angry, okay? Because they're killing you, folks. All right, and most of you out there are still patronizing the goddamn thing. You know, thankfully, we're on after hours here on TCT, where language can slip away from us from time to time, and it's not my usual it's not my usual operating mode. But I've had it. I mean, I started out down this thing, just to try to get my kids back from basically an unlawful kidnapping of my kids. All right? Little did I know that in the court system, I find myself slapped down by special drawing rights coming out of the International Monetary Fund that is supporting that lawless woman to do whatever the fuck she wants to you. All right? Now, I've been fighting this basically, 3.5 years, I've had my kids held by this woman who had no lawful authority to take them out of state in the first place. All right? And then what kind of bullshit is this that I have to come into this system? You basically, go through the ecclesiastical route and walk the gauntlet, run the gauntlet of getting preyed on by these cops, attorneys, and so-called judges, just so I could evidence this shit. All right, we could turn it over to the House of Lords, who's the keepers of the ecclesiastical law.
The Treasury.
The Treasury. We had to show how the United States Incorporated had voluntarily withdrawn from the IMF to take their money away from them.
And that was...
Set up our own court, all right? Find them guilty of genocide. Find them guilty of human trafficking. Okay? This is all the shit I've gone through just to try to get my kids back from a situation that was unlawful on its face to begin with.
And for all those that will cast doubt upon hearing this, that he doesn't have his kids back yet, Vanessa, his ex-wife, psychopath, was working for the Attorney General, Denver County Attorney General in Colorado. And when we brought the evidence to the surface that she was human trafficking and holding children hostage in exchange for money, they let her go. First they put her on administrative leave, and then ultimately she was fired. Well, what they did, and unbeknownst to them, is, of course, by their works and actions, they're already guilty. They've already admitted by their works, by firing her and letting her go, that yes, she was guilty of those things. And what they were doing is cleaning their hands. Well, now recently, she started working for Western Dairy Association, which is an arm of the Denver County Corporation. So they just switched her and transferred her over to another position, another visual presentation, but it's still the same corporation, and they will be held accountable for this. So even though they're shifting and they're playing clean hands doctrine and everything else, they're still guilty. They hired a known kidnapper. She's taking hostages, and it's not just her. And that's part of the case with Rocco as well, is that during your relationship, no matter if you had a marriage license in your hand or not, that was only a rental agreement, a rental contract with her original daddy. And she's since, before, she was contracted with the state in the action of marriage. And that's what they're not getting at this time. They don't think that they're going to be held accountable. But the husband is responsible for her debts. You're not her husband. She was never, ever, 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 ever married to you. She was always contracted with the state, regardless of that piece of paper. And that is the actuality, the physical state of marriage. The contract of marriage is her contracting with the state and looking at the state as her husband. It's protecting her, it's providing her comfort, it's giving her jobs, and she's garnering these benefits and rights and everything else. Title and all of these things from her husband. And the husband is going to be held accountable, will be held accountable for her works. He's responsible for her.
Yeah, well, not anymore, because of the quit claim. Okay, attention, all government agencies. I have quit claim that thing known as Vanessa Denise Robinson Alsop. Right? She's no longer my responsibility. Federal, state, her husband, she's yours.
Right, and that's by her works and actions. She married the state when she brought forth the false allegations. Those were never argued. She agreed that they were false allegations. The state agreed that they were false allegations. The Attorney General's office agreed that they were false allegations, and that's why it let her go. These things were all founded on and based on fraud. And part of that was that she was in the action of being married to the state the entire time. You know, you're not the responsible party. You never were. But the premise was, under the rules of bankruptcy, is that the husband is responsible for her. So they had the millstone wrapped around your neck until you provided evidence that she wasn't yours. She wasn't yours to begin with.
Yeah, and back in the day, I tried to do this, you know. I immediately started studying all this statute and code and all this, you know, this mechanism that they've created. You know, I put in exhibits back then. I was using exhibits before I found the power of the admission statements. Okay. All right, still coming in pleading as a citizen, expecting to get some kind of help from these courts. No, they're just there to prey on me further, as I come to find out.
Right, which is our purpose. Well, our purpose is to evidence them.
And you know, the evidence I was putting in that you would think that they would see, but no, thanks to stare decisis and attorney work product doctrine and all these things that the attorney is created to keep evidence off the court record. No, they're not looking at that. They're looking at the surety. They're looking at who is on the hook to offset this congressional bankruptcy. And that's all you are. You're being trafficked on paper by these judges. All right? They're throwing you, you know, in an act of human trafficking, throwing you on paper, and they're depositing you, and they're cashing in on everything you're trying to do, okay? And this is what you're calling the justice system. Nothing could be further from the truth. I put in hundreds of papers of documents showing, you know, how this woman had embezzled from me and got into my bank accounts, cleaned me out, ran off with the kids, all right, left me with, you know, tens of thousands of credit card debts, let alone the mortgage with no money to pay it. So I soon found myself facing foreclosure. Now, I got, you know, the credit cards basically handled statutorily. Little did I know then, though, that they were just already planning on setting me up, you know, down the road for this foreclosure. All right? Now I come into court and arguing the foreclosure, and I had all their forensics and, you know, all the statutory curtains that they pull over on everybody, the dead man's pledge, you know, and I come up against this attorney, basically as a third-party debt collector. Turns out this attorney is he's corporate counsel. So not only do I have a specialized government agent ex-wife, but you know, I'm dealing with corporate counsel attorney here in my foreclosure. Okay. All right. So I mean, you can't really explain this stuff and do it justice. You have to really experience it.
Okay.
Well, what we did is we did experience it, you know, and I finally divested all title, removed my stock from the United States Inc., I found out, what an ongoing battle that is. It's like, no, you can't do that. Get back in there and be a good surety is basically what I was being told. All right. Now, I said, no, well, I'm not going to be party to this anymore. I'm divesting all stock, revesting in my own house. Oh, Tam, you want to maybe fill in some holes here? I'm just seeing red, and I'm thinking about going back in my mind through these times.
Absolutely. And as a surety can only be a natural person. So if you're claiming to be a natural person, you're not a surety. And so often, we learn through the evidence that you don't do that. Okay, so as Bo went along, and this is before he and I met and everything else, he's saying, I want my rights. I'm a man. I'm a living being. Come on, hear me. Well, the presumption of death is already overcome upon the summon. Well, guess what? Vanessa files for divorce. Everybody files for divorce. Everybody gets summoned. Everybody's dead. They're on the same playing field. Okay? So then the foreclosure happens. The foreclosure is founded on what? A dead pledge, mortgage. And so all of these things are overcoming the presumption of death and allowing Congress to discharge congressional bankruptcy through the use of 28 U.S.C. subsection 453, which is the judicial oath to discharge congressional bankruptcy. They're discharging their duties under that oath. And their duties are what? Well, they're supposed to be paying back their bankruptcy, unless they can ring you in there and declare you dead. So when you started coming in as the be living, you began with, don't post me. Don't post me. Here, you're trying to mail the dead thing again, and we're not going to have any of that. And so that corporate counsel attorney comes in, and this is at the local level in Superior Court. He comes in and he says, I'm going to keep on posting you. He does this on record. I'm going to keep on posting you. He doesn't argue 1794 Treaty of Amity, Commerce, or Navigation. He doesn't have any evidence providing that he can do that. And he continues to post him. Well, so we come back at him and we say, no, you're not going to post me. I'm not in your system. I'm not a citizen. I'm not anything you're trying to call me. Well, when we came back at him, and this is outside of court, this is only through us, communicating through the court on the record. And you can see this at chooseyourside.org or tammypepperman.org. All of the documentation is there. And you can start, September of 2012, and it goes along. And, okay, don't post me. We were on that. We went off on him. We misspelled his name several times. So he came in to defend his title. Now, here's a corporate counsel attorney. Corporate counsel sitting in the local county. And it appears like they're just there for the county because, counties are not the federal state, according to the 1802 Enablement Acts, beginning with the 1802 Enablement Acts. Well, we misspelled this guy's name several times in the document, so he comes in to defend the title, and he comes in as the federal state. That was
when we moved to...
before we moved to district court.
Okay, before we moved to district court, right.
Right. So he comes in as a federal state, and he admits that he's working on behalf of the federal state, on behalf of Congress. Okay? So then we go along a little bit further, and he admits all of these things. So we come in and we say, no, okay, if you work for the federal state, we're going to call this out as a fraudulent assignment according to Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 1 and 2 of the Constitution, which maintains that human beings are to be kept on general welfare. It's not to be a corporate welfare setting in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so, and I'll stop here and remind everybody, if anybody in Congress or at the federal level or all these teachers and all these cops want to know who to blame, who threw it, who crapped the bed, It was Andrew P. Seward. He came in to defend his title and throw it all away on behalf of the federal state, because at that time he admitted that the federal state, by his works and actions, were human trafficking and nothing more. Okay, so we go along. Now the bank stops mid-December. After this is done, this is, well, towards the end of December, I guess it was around Christmas time. And they stop moving. They know what their liability is, right? As the bank. Well, the bank is in actuality the court, as defined by Black's Law Dictionary. And so they stop. And then in January, we start getting eviction notices. Notices to get out of the property because they're in a hurry now. These eviction notices are not coming from the bank. They're coming from David Chaplot, the judge sitting in the Superior Court.
The alleged judge. He's no judge at all by his works and actions.
Right, he's an attorney. So then, going along after these eviction notices, of course, this is a point where I threw myself under the bus because I had already done the my expatriation, which is more formal than expatriation. I actually did the hostile takeover of the franchise, and at that time I gave it to Bo. And what that means is that we came in with standing on December 14th, 2012. And for anybody who listens to us, you realize what that means, but I'll stop there and go back. At the, it wasn't the separation, it was the coronation charter. At the coronation charter, the king came in and took my estate, the female. And at that time, he says, well, I'm going to hold on to this just in case your husbands are dead, blah, blah, blah. Then they killed off all the husbands. And ever since that time, the, quote, king has been holding the female's estate. Not the males, the females. And is there
any question why the female's estate is, you know, and her rights are reserved over the males? Right. That should answer it right there.
Right, because she's chattel. She's used as a product.
By the king. He's
right.
The king's chattel.
Right.
The male is just a disposable, you know, competition to that king, so he wants to off you as quickly as possible.
Right. And you're the dead man that's lost at sea in the 1666 Cestui Que Vie Act. So, when that female's estate is taken over, that was all of the estates merged into one throughout time. Throughout forever. And so when Bo took me over, after I gave of myself, that means that everybody's estates were secured under Bo as the United States of being. So, I already knew this, and Bo and I talked about this. Now I have the utmost trust. This is what Jesus teaches in 1 Corinthians 13, faith, hope, and charity. And I already knew what the court was going to do, and I already know what Bo was going to do because I trust him. So I went ahead and I went upon a motion. I didn't enter into the jurisdiction. I went upon a motion to for a restraint. What did I come in as? Injunctive relief.
Yeah, an injunctive relief based on the 2009 Protecting Tenants Against Foreclosure Act. Right. Their own goddamn laws.
Right, which is all bullshit, right? Because when I came in, I'm actually not a tenant of the bank in any way, shape, or form. I'm a tenant of Bo, based on my forgiveness and executor doc. That's a trust relationship, and so I actually reside in that trust. So I went ahead and do that, knowing that Bo was going to pull me out. Now, the next part, you know, is part of 1 Corinthians 13. And so I already knew what the court was going to do. And sure enough, this attorney in the black dress represented my word. I went on an injunctive, upon a motion for injunction. And he gave me a temporary stay on the writ of
execution.
Writ of assistance.
Writ of assistance.
Right. So he completely represented my word.
That's a nice way of describing a writ, means to kick you the fuck out onto the street.
Right, right. But this is also the funny part, although it wasn't funny at the time. So, in return, of course, Bull writes him a letter as the executor, and he says, what the hell are you doing? You represented her word, and they called me what they call everybody else, proper person. They said I appeared in my proper person and all this. I did no such thing, as I'm already maintained as a state of being in my forgiveness and executor docs. And so
which they had.
Yep. Bull wrote him a letter back channel.
So the judge was with, or the so-called Judge Chaplot is with knowledge.
Absolutely. Well, and what most don't realize, because, you know, that's like a card kept on our hands, is that the bank never showed up that day. Okay, so this is failure to prosecute. Well, we knew all of these things prior to this. So Bull writes the judge a letter and says, this is executor de centort, yada yada. You can find this in the documents. Which, of course, pissed the judge off. Pissed him off. It says Bull has authority and you don't have authority. And this judge reacted accordingly. He kicked us out immediately. Immediately. He didn't wait for anything. He just whipped his little pecker out and showed us. And that was the most profound thing, is that the judge was acting as the bank.
Yeah, this, mind you, is when we had already entered into the United States District Court.
Absolutely.
Which by their own laws, once again, all that Superior Court stuff, lower court action is supposed to halt immediately.
Absolutely.
They don't care about that.
No, we already knew what they were going to do, because that's what Jesus directs us to do in 1 Corinthians 13. Experience all things so that you can get the evidence to hold them accountable. And that's what we were doing. So we're in district court at the same time. We're being kicked out of the house and everything else. And in district court, we put in the, you know, you can see it on the docs. Just go to the docs. I'm not going to get into a bunch of details. So here I am prayed on. Okay.
Yeah, before you even left the court that day, don't forget that that judge had sicked some sicko adult protection services guy to accost you,
right,
as you were trying to scurry out the House of Ball.
Right, and that was another funny aspect that we were able to evidence. So in between, as we're fighting this, they're hitting us from all sides with fourth generation warfare. And so we were telling the gas company, don't post me. Now, the gas company, of course, is involved in all of this. That is the corporate governance. The Cestui Que Trusts are actually set up in utility companies.
That's right. You people out there want to know where your money from your estate's being hidden. It's being held in those utilities companies, and you can see this from Massachusetts Land Trust document.
Right. Declarations of trust is substitutes for incorporation. Now, those are declarations, and you know, I wish I should
probably put those up so people can get those too.
Right. Well, a declaration.
So they can see how they've been scammed.
Right. A declaration is something said. It's not something done. It's not physical. It's still a fiction. So they can declare their trust all they want to, but their trusts are always a fictional character of a trust, which is called fiduciary. So regardless, again, they don't have any standing. So the gas company, what they did was they shut off the gas first, and of course, I'm not in their system. I'm a separate country than they are, under my forgiveness and executor docs. And so they had perpetrated war crimes against my country. So I put that in the court. We put that in the court because, you know, they're perpetrating criminal acts. And we turned the gas back on, or it appeared to be back on. Anyway, so then they came out and they told the entire gas meter thing. And
this is in the middle of winter. In
the middle of winter. So, and that's the reason that when I was in court that day, they sipped adult protection on me. This guy came up to me and offered to. He said, "Honey, are you having any difficulties?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine." He says, "Do you need cash assistance? We can give you cash. I can set you up in a new house. I can do all of these things." Well, that's the action of hearts and minds. That's a war tactic in order to divide me from the male. And for all intents and purposes, for, you know, that's under a trust agreement. That's a union. So their function, that snake in the garden, his function is to divide the male and the female so that I can be preyed on by offering me those benefits. Anyway, so it took me about 10-15 minutes to get out of there and get away from this guy because he's very persistent. And of course, I'm no, I'm fine, leave me alone. And he kept coming back at me, do you need this, and I'll offer you this, and this. And
he gets financial assistance, or he gets financial incentives, rather, for perpetuating these things, so many sign-ups. It's a piecemeal thing, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Federal drawing rights, special drawing rights, and treasury funds for helping the female under feminism. And no, I didn't contract with them. I declined all of their offers because I'm not about to go away from the male. I have no intentions of contracting with the snake in the garden. So I get out of there, yada yada. We eventually get, evicted. The sheriff comes out, armed to the teeth, all of these things. I don't remember. There was like 3 of them there. And then this dancing real estate agent. And, since that time, he killed one of the cats. He grand theft auto on the Jimmy, which is still ongoing, which is the funny part, and during the time that we were retrieving things from this property, I looked this guy in the face and I said, look, I've never lost a case. I never intend on losing a case. And eventually you're going to be held accountable, but you're going to be used as a fall guy because you're the one that we see. These are all presentations put on by the marquee. He doesn't listen to me. He laughs, and he made his money and everything else. And, and then eventually we had so many cases going on at that point in time. It wasn't only ours. We were evidencing that they're preying on children, preying on females in between, and we're doing all of these things, and of course, Bo's busier than any of us. And that's what happened in March. So we get to March here. March 5th, the International Monetary Fund was given evidence not only of the evidence they were preying on me as a female, they were preying on children, they were preying on other females as well, and they got that evidence. And by the 8th, the United States Incorporated was voluntarily withdrawn from the International Monetary Fund based on their works and actions, because they weren't using the special drawing rights to protect females. They were using special drawing rights to prey on them and children.
And you want evidence of this, again, go to the Dropbox, link to chooseyourside.org, tammypepperman.org, go to the documents page and pull up the IMF screenshots.
Right. So then it starts getting exciting. Okay, this judge now, we're dealing with, what was his name in district?
Simon.
Simon, yeah.
Simon Says.
Yeah,
Simon Bar Sinister.
Simon was funny. So he came in. There was no motion from anybody to dismiss. That was a valid motion to dismiss because it came from corporate counsel. It came from corporate counsel in South Bend, Indiana, the St. Joseph County. And they came in and solidified the judgment at that time by appearing on behalf of St. Joseph County. And what that is a cognitive judgment. So we won the judgment then. Then we go along and we, of course, overruled Simon several times because he wasn't adhering to any law. He wasn't maintaining that he had any authority whatsoever. And he couldn't be a judge. He wasn't acting as a judge, and so we kept slamming him down for that. And eventually the company corporation came in on appearance with their attorneys, which was a cognitive judgment against the corporation, the company corporation. Northern Holdings came in on appearance of their attorney, which was a cognitive judgment against Northern Holdings. By May, we had the agreed entry with Northern Holdings. We issued that agreed entry. It was never argued by the bank, court, or anybody else. United States Incorporated. And all of this time, of course, we're following the rules of service and everything else. Senate was served. They opened their summon, and upon opening it, they sealed it back up with tape, said open for inspection, and attempted to send it back, as did the company corporation, but we already had receipt that they had received it. And these are the funny things, is that, you know, that just doesn't happen, you know, it's just...
Yeah, explain for our listeners that may not know who the company corporation is.
That's the one with all of the utilities stuck into it as a holding corporation.
Yes.
And so, and this is all under Northern Holdings. Now, there's lots and lots of holding corporations and everything else, but Northern Holding has no parent company. It is the father of all of the others. So it holds the medical industry, it holds the criminal industry, it holds the insurance, it holds everything.